Hello friends, how are you doing on this lovely Friday? I hope you're doing well. I'm here today to talk to you about learning styles. One of the many advantages we have of teaching our children at home is that we can adapt what we do to our individual child and their learning style. Now most kids learn through a variety of styles and methods, and that's good, but we each have a style that is strongest, or one that we prefer to be taught with. Where do we start? Well, first we make a list of everything that our child excels at. Is he a good reader? Does he read all the time? Is she good with hands-on projects? Is he good at arguing? Yes, that can be a strength. Does he love music? Is she orderly and neat? When you have that list compiled, let's look at the three basic types of learners. There's kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. A kinesthetic learner likes to tinker, take things apart, play with Legos, speaks with his hands, is in constant motion, has no concept of personal space, you know what I mean. And if someone observes your child, they might label them as hyperactive. An auditory learner is talkative, likes to discuss everything before doing it, tells lots of jokes, asks tons of questions, finds noise very distracting when they're trying to work, and needs a reason for everything they do, and they find a reason for everything they do. A visual learner is usually quiet and shy because they're observing. They're usually organized because they like neat things to look at. They make choices based on visual appeal. Oh, that's pretty, I like that one. And they frequently forget oral instructions. Does your child exhibit some from every category? Well, that's good. We don't want to play on their strengths and ignore their weaknesses. These are just generalities. There are also some free tests that you can have your child take. educationplanner.org or howtolearn.com or howtostudy.com. Okay, so now that we know our child's learning style, now what? Well, we need to find ways to teach them in their preferred style, but also incorporate the other styles too, to grow that area of their brain. It's important for your child to know their own learning style so that they will know how to study in college. For instance, if they're a kinesthetic learner, they might need to write everything down when they go to a lecture if they're not an auditory learner. They also need to know this so when they go to work, they can learn their job. What you don't want to do is ignore their weakest ways of learning and focus on their strengths. Okay, so let's talk about some ways to teach in each learning style. The kinesthetic learners like hands-on projects, math manipulatives, and for spelling you can have them write in sand or use magnetic letters. They like to move around when they're learning, so if you're working on math facts, put them on the treadmill and have them walk a little bit. They need frequent breaks for activity during their learning. And sometimes we need to suggest appropriate ways for them to use all that energy. For instance, we have a trampoline at our house. And when my son gets a little fidgety in a seat, I suggest he go out and jump on the trampoline for 10 or 15 minutes. If it's pretty outside. If it's not, I have him walk the stairs. And usually that helps and he's able to go sit down again. When we lived with my parents before the house was ready, that my mom had this great big exercise ball. And so he would actually sit on the exercise ball, roll around and move around while he was learning, while he was doing his workbook. So that worked really well for him. Sometimes I find myself wanting them to sit still. But I have to ask myself, what is the goal? The goal is not for the child to sit still. The goal is actually for them to learn. And so if they learn better by moving around, then that's what we need to find an appropriate way for them to do that. Now, auditory learners learn better through reading aloud, songs that teach. Perhaps you have a CD you can get that teaches the states and capitals. We used to have CDs that taught science facts, classification of animals. They're better with auditory instructions or lectures, and they would probably be really good if you assigned them oral presentation. So a book report or something that they need to give to the family. We need to encourage them to talk out loud before they make decisions, because sometimes talking out loud helps them clarify what they want to do. Sometimes they get a little too talkative. So I read a book that suggested you have a code word with your child, like pizza or love you, and that would be their clue that Mom's had enough talking for now. We need to give her a little break in a polite and loving way. There's also ways to, after you discuss something that, after you learn something, that you ask them discussion questions so they can solidify those facts in their mind. You can also find a book on tape to help them. And the library has these little things called playaways, where it's just a little device and you use your earbuds. It's very easy, very convenient. Now, visual learners like charts. Perhaps if you're studying the dynasties in China, that you would have a chart, or the families of the royal English and French families, that you chart all that out so they can see. They would also be helpful to do diagrams, like diagramming sentences, writing their notes on flashcards, or they would be better with written instructions. Let them actually read the top of the worksheet that has the instructions instead of you reading it to them. Sometimes if you have to talk to them about something, or they have to go to a lecture, they like to draw and doodle. I have a kid like that too. She's much better if she has a pencil in her hand and she's drawing something. She'll retain it a lot better. Sometimes they like to take notes. That's me. All the sermons I go to, all the classes I go to, just to help it solidify in my brain, I take notes. I have to use that hand motion. Also, making lists is good for visual learners. I like to make a list. I like to see what I have to do, and I especially like to see when I cross things off my list. When a visual learner needs to memorize something, we need to encourage them to provide a vivid mental picture, and that would help them to learn it better. One of the books that we used when my kids were younger was a book that taught about the presidents of the United States, and it gave them visual clues about their names to help them remember that. And then you put them all together, and it would put it in order, and you, at the end of the book, you memorized all the presidents in order. Sometimes visual learners get bored, and so they find stimulation in video games or playing on their phone. Now, this is a big controversy, and I know every family has to do what is best for their family. But sometimes it's helpful to set limits. We do that at my house. Make sure their chores are done, and then they can play video games kind of as a reward. And now that my son's getting a little older, we're going to kind of steer him towards some computer classes. Now, all the information that I've given you today can be found on schoolhouseteachers.com. If you look under resources and just for parents, there's a whole list of things. Now, down at the bottom, there will be a button that says Your Child's Learning Styles. This has 8 articles written by 8 different authors, and they will help you to do this. Some of it talks about what I talked about today, but there's also some other topics that include adapting your curriculum to your different learners, the benefits of multi-sensory spelling, and play your way through learning for those kinesthetic learners. It's like having a homeschool convention at your fingertips. Before I began my homeschooling journey, my uncle, who homeschools his daughter, gave me some great advice. I was questioning whether or not I was qualified to teach, and he said that the biggest requirement that a parent has to teach their child is that they love their child. Now, if you love your child, you're going to do whatever you need to help that child succeed. And that stuck with me all these years because I know that I love my kids, and I'm going to do, if I can't do it, I'm going to find someone else who can to help them. But you know what? The Bible also tells us in James 1:5 that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So think about that. Pray about it. Ask God. He's not going to give you a little bit. It says He'll give it generously. I would also like to recommend some books. How They Learn by Cynthia Tobias, and this one, Bringing Out the Best in Your Child. This is one of my favorites here. It gives all kinds of situations that you might encounter during the day and then ways that will help you deal with them. This is also by Cynthia Tobias and Carol Funk. Now, I hope you enjoyed today. I hope that you will also join me next week on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central for more homeschooling help with schoolhouseteachers.com. And be sure and let me know what kind of topics you'd like to talk about. See you later.